is our pleasure to take you to Alaska, and we have so many ways to get there. The traditional tourist season in Alaska starts in May 2020 and ends mid September 2020, but now is the time to book. Do you want to be on a traditional cruise, or do you want to escape with an Alaska Dream Cruise? We have small intimate ships and we've got mass market vessels just for you. Pick your prizes. So, Share Fantastic Travels and Resorts Limited, we're pleased to be taking you into Alaska.
Hello, Doug. The Sweet Life Travel Podcast is so excited to catch up with you on this side of Cruise World. And what a wonderful show it was. And I'm so glad that you have agreed to join us and to talk about Alaska Dream Cruises. You know, it kind of catches my attention in a very unique way because when you have a name that has dream included in it, all of a sudden one's mind starts to race and think of how whimsical, sailing with the Alaska Dream cruises must be. Let us start by talking about that for a bit, Doug.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm glad to be talking to you, and thank you for having me. That is how we think of Alaskan Dream Cruises. It is a dream vacation. Our owners, the Allen family, have been fortunate enough to call Sitka, Alaska, their home for generations, and they really know firsthand what a special place it is. But with the millions of people that visit Alaska each year, very few of those people actually get to see true Alaska. And the Allens really see the cruise line as their way to invite people into their backyard and show them an Alaska that very few people ever get to really experience.
It's truly delightful, Doug. And I operate in a market. I suspect maybe because we're in the Caribbean and we know sun and sea and sand 365 days of the year unless there's liquid sunshine. Many people here tend to be pushing themselves towards that dream vacation in Alaska. And so, to my surprise, that interest level has really drawn me to learn a whole lot more about the product. But if you don't mind, I'd like us to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about Doug. Um, so, we all love our industry, we all love our various brands, but many times it's the mystique behind the magic that people get curious about. So tell us, how did you start out in this business? What was your intention prior to joining the industry, if you will, um, about travel? And then to cap it off, what's your dream trip? I'd love to know all of those things.
Yeah, well, that's what travel's all about, experiencing things that are outside our normal and fighting our own ignorance. Getting that opportunity to learn about people and places in the world that we don't get to see in our everyday lives. I think that's really important that we all have those experiences as often as we can and learn as much as we can about the world around us while we're here. For me, I started in the travel industry about 20 years ago, and I'm probably dating myself a little bit here, but I was taking reservations for Carnival Cruise Line. And to be honest with you, I didn't think it was going to last very long. I thought it was going to be a temporary gig. I was a single father with two kids, and I had just moved back to my hometown. The long hours I had been putting in at my previous jobs were really not going to work for me anymore being a single father. And a friend of mine talked me into coming to working with him. He kind of sold it as a relatively stress-free and fun environment, and it was. But then, time passes, promotions come along, and I realized this thing that I didn't really think was going to last very long is not only supporting my family, but I was actually having a really good time doing it. So, yeah, to make a long story short, about a year and a half ago, a recruiter approached me about my current position with Alaskan Dream Cruises, and I've been here ever since. I do feel blessed working in travel, though. It's really hard to find fault in a career that encourages you to take all your vacation time and allows you to see the world while you're at it. I firmly believe that with our modern world, vacation and travel is really good for our health. There's studies that actually back this up. People who take regular vacations, ones that actually go somewhere, not the staycations, but who actually take that time and go somewhere and see different things, those people tend to live longer. Their relationships tend to last longer, and they just generally tend to be healthier people. And that's really because travel gets us away from the stress of our everyday lives. And the more modern our world gets, I think the more we need to break away from that. Um, for my dream trip, that's really a hard one for me as well. I'm really lucky. I've already done a lot, and I have to say that my actual dream trip would probably take the rest of my life if I started right now. And that's because I want to see everything. And I know that's impossible, but I'm really going to try to see how close I can get. I want to see as much of the world as I can while I'm still here to see it. So, although I will tell you, my next trip, it is going to have to include some of your sun, sea, and sand. It's been a while since I've been down there and had a vacation like that, and I'm really ready to relax right now.
Thank you, Doug. That was what really caught my attention the first time you and I spoke, because having sold quite a bit of Alaska with the larger ships, larger companies, I am fascinated about the idea of seeing more of Alaska. I'm an island girl and I really like to get deep down, close, and personal with the area that we're visiting. So this is just fascinating. And I want you just to tell us a little bit more about what we can expect as we sail into those intimate harbors with Alaskan Dream Cruises.
That is really the benefit of sailing on a smaller ship, especially in Alaska. The larger ships are great, but there's thousands of little bays and inlets in Southeast Alaska that those larger ships simply can't fit into. And it's really in these more intimate areas that our guests get the opportunity to take a closer look at the wildlife of the area, like the whales, sea lions, brown bears, the sea otters, and the puffins. With Alaskan Dream Cruises, we actually have six ships to choose from. The smallest holds just 10 guests, and the largest holds 76. So, all very capable of getting into these smaller bays and inlets that, those ships that hold thousands of guests can't go into. But the other benefit there is when one of our crew notices a family of brown bears in a little bay somewhere, we're able to turn into that bay so that our guests can get a closer look while still being safely on the ship. Also, in every one of our staterooms, we have two sets of binoculars so that our guests can get an even closer look as the wildlife as we cruise by. The other thing that is included with every Alaskan Dream Cruise is all our shore excursions, so you don't have to worry about paying for those little extras when you come to visit us. Each of our ships has kayaks for exploring the bays we go into, as well as skiffs so we can take small groups on land for beach combing or even a rainforest hike.
Love the imagery and all that brings forth, and it brings back to my memory one of my stand-up moments that I'm only just beginning to remember as I listen to you. And that was as a teenage girl during a student exchange program, having rancho and paella in a vineyard, because the family I lived with, they lived in a vineyard or in a wine, you know, growing country. And so after a day of picking grapes, we had paella and rancho cooked, on the open wood flame in the middle of a vineyard. And we basically grabbed stones, sat on, and didn't have plates. So everybody just kind of scooped up their portion to their end of the paella pot. And that's how we ate, and these are memories that stay with you forever. So I'm so happy that even your vivid description led to that memory for me. And it's really been nice talking to you, Doug. I really appreciate the time that we've spent together. But just before you go, do you have any parting words for our listeners? Go ahead, take the floor.
Oh, I love paella. That must have been fantastic. And thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun talking to you. So you all know that Alaskan Dream Cruise is a small ship cruise line, and we operate in Alaska. But what I don't think we've already covered is that we are locally owned and operated by an Alaska Native family. In fact, we're the only Native-owned cruise line in the state of Alaska. Our owners are actually members of the Tlingit tribe of Sitka, Alaska, so they've literally been there for thousands of years. Our goal and the Allen family's goal is to show our guests true Alaska, not just tourist Alaska. So, for anyone who's interested, we'd love to welcome you all into our True Alaskan family and show you around our beautiful state. Just give Sharon a call and she'll help you get set up, I'm sure. If you're not sure about Alaska, I'm sure there's some of you out there that are thinking you're not sure about us yet. I encourage you to give us a look. It's truly the most beautiful place I've ever seen. And most people really don't realize that Southeast Alaska in particular is actually a rainforest and are really surprised by how mild the climate really is. It doesn't get nearly as cold in Sitka as most people think of when they think of Alaska. So, and who knows? Maybe Alaska could be your future turkey story. So, if it just comes down to it though, and Alaska's not in your future, go somewhere. See as much of this world as you can with those you love while you can, and I guarantee you, you'll never regret it.
No, Doug, you have said so many things that excite me. And one of the things that I always love hearing is how better travel makes people feel and how much longer people live because they take time out to do fun things. So we share the very same passion, for sure. And of course, I'm very happy that you have saved me the trouble of inviting you to Sunsea and Sand. Because I tell you, nobody really does it the way we do it right here in the Caribbean. So, looking forward to playing host to you in the very near future. But before we wrap up, I would love if you could tell us one trip that you have taken that really left a mark on you, something that really stood out, something that brought back huge memories. Do tell.
Oh, I know that you guys know how to do it in the Caribbean. That's why I keep coming back. But I think the trip that stands out in my mind the most was actually a Mediterranean cruise that my wife and I took a few years back. It was a 12-night cruise. There were several stops in Italy, Greece, and Turkey. And to be honest with you, I was really not looking forward to Turkey because back then, when I thought about Turkey, I thought Istanbul. I thought, that whole Middle Eastern dust and sand vibe. And it just really wasn't something that I was too interested in seeing. But when I got there, I found that this country is so full of history. And in many ways, the ancient ruins in Turkey, in cities like Ephesus, are just as good, if not better, than what you would see in Italy or Greece. And the people there are so nice. The tour guides are amazing. They had so much passion for their country and its history. Our tour guide was actually by trade, he was actually a history teacher, so he had a lot of passion behind that. And his passion was really infectious, and you really had to get excited with them. I think the one thing in particular that stood out to me in Turkey was they had some excavated clay pipes from thousands of years ago. And it's kind of then I realized, people in this ancient city thousands of years ago had more access to indoor plumbing than people in our Western world did just 300 years ago. And that really stood out to me as evidence about how bad the Dark Ages were for mankind and how much technology we all lost during that time. And in a lot of ways, the only reason we still have access to a lot of the ancient writings that we do today is because of the Ottoman Turks. They saw it, they knew it was important, and they saved it for all of us. So that had a really big impact on me. And that trip, I think, was a turning point for me because the one place that I really only went to because it was part of a larger itinerary of places that I really wanted to go, it ended up being really the favorite part, my favorite part of the trip. This is also why my answer to your earlier question was I want to see everything. Because sometimes the things that have the biggest impact on you are the things that you were initially not so excited about. So That trip probably stood out to me as probably the one that impacted me most.
You know, those are true parting words, Doug. And so often I see this to be true for all my guests on the Sweet Life Travel podcast, encouraging persons just to get up and get out there. There's so much world to see, so much to experience, and we shouldn't be wasting time just thinking about it. I look forward to my personal Alaska Dream Cruise experience, Doug. We're going to get together and make that happen, and I'm going to be taking some folks along with me because it's always nicer when we do it in groups, eh? So, this brings us to the end of this particular episode of the Sweet Life Travel Podcast, but absolutely not the end of all the wonderful things that we have in store for you. So, whatever you do, wherever you go, remember we're here just for you, just to educate, to enlighten, and to make traveling more accessible as we share all that there is to know, because it is indeed a sweet life as you travel.